going on, everybody? I go by the name of Kari, and I want to thank you guys for joining me here today on SneakerPhetish. Guys, sneakers have been coming out faster than I've been able to show them to you guys lately. It's been a whirlwind of things that have been coming out, and I've been copping a whole lot of sneakers without actually being able to have the time to turn around and show them to all you guys. So today, I'm giving you guys a little bit of an update in my collection, what I've been copping lately, and I've got, I believe, 7 different pairs of sneakers to show you guys today. So sit back, relax, and let's get into the first one. Now, if you guys didn't realize it, hopefully you did, it's Black History Month. And because it's Black History Month, the first 2 pairs of shoes I want to show you guys are specifically for Black History Month, starting with the latest from Converse and Denim Tears. Starting off with the box here, you guys can clearly see the theming of the box for these. We have the Converse All-Star on the lid here, red, green, and black box, like I mentioned, with the Denim Tears and the Converse Chuck Taylor star on the back. So again, Black History Month sneaker, let's jump into it. Boom. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Converse All-Star Chuck Taylor Low by Denim Tears. All right, guys, it's a regular Chuck Taylor All-Star Low, and I'm not going to go too deep into it because we got a lot to go through today. But basically, the entire upper of the sneaker is wrapped in the Marcus Garvey or the Pan-African flag. Tremaine Emery is also known as Denim Tears, and that's also the name of his company. He's a designer. He's from Jamaica, Queens, and he's very, very big into making sure that whatever he's feeling, whatever the narrative is portrayed on his canvases like the sneaker here. The narrative for this sneaker, of course, is bold, black, and beautiful, and that really has a lot to do with the Marcus Garvey or the Pan-African flag as a whole. As a black man, I'm very tuned in to the Marcus Garvey flag, the red representing the blood that was shed, the black representing the power of the people, the green representing the wealth of the motherland, Africa. So it's a fantastic statement. It's a really, really well done shoe. It's got a red outsole on it, white midsole with the little green stripe here. I think the shoe was done very, very well. So salute to Tremaine for this one. Salute to Denim Tears. Salute to Converse. Just a quick shoe to get us started here. So once again, this is the Converse All-Star Chuck Taylor Low by Denim Tears, featuring the Marcus Garvey or the Pan-African flag. So a very dope pickup for Black History Month. Now, keeping with the theme of Black History Month, we have the brand new 2021 Black History Month collection from New Balance that just recently dropped. It featured people like Jaden Smith as some of their models for the campaign. They featured hoodies and shirts that said "Their Story Matters" or "My Story Matters." And I've got one of the sneakers that I want to show you guys now that I really like. So let's jump into it. Boom. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is the New Balance 574 for Black History Month 2021. It's a good looking shoe. Now, 2 sneakers released in this collection. There was the 990 V5 that actually was about twice the price of these, and the 574. Now, personally, because of the way that I feel my feet look in New Balances and in certain models of New Balances, the 990 isn't really that great of a fit for my foot personally, but the colors were very, very nice. So I opted for the 574. So let's take a little deeper look at those. I started with the upper of the shoe here. Now, one thing that really catches my eye are the colors that were used to represent Black History Month. This really deep Bordeaux kind of maroon color here. I really like that right on the upper eyelid here. And that leather you also see kind of used throughout the upper of the sneaker, right around the collar of the shoe as well. It's subtle, but it's a really nice detail. You got that really nice suede end for the New Balance. Now, this is not a 3M on this shoe. Unfortunately, it's not a 3M on the end for the New Balance, but that's perfectly fine for me. Very nice suede material here in maroon for the end on the New Balance, outlined in this really nice gold here. I like that touch. Now, obviously, the thing that's going to grab your attention the most here is what this is. Now, this it just looks like a braid or something like that. This was actually developed as a means to use not only to replace the laces in the sneaker, but you could also use it as an anklet or a bracelet if you would like to do that as well. So the designers from New Balance that actually put this sneaker together, they wanted to add that little touch in there so you can wear that externally if you want to do that. Now, on the upper of the shoe and the quarter panels are wrapping around the heel, you have this really nice black suede as well. Very nice. Taking a top down look at the shoe here, you have the plain black wax laces going into this really nice toe box here that really starts at the mud guards and goes all the way around here in this really nice purple. Now, if you didn't know, the color purple actually represents royalty or regality. And so for Black History Month, I thought that it was really dope that the story being told here was one of power and royalty and regality, which is how a lot of us tend to think of ourselves, as royalty. You hear a lot of us calling each other kings and queens, and that's for a reason. So using purple, I think, was a fantastic touch on this shoe. Speaking of touches I really liked on this shoe too, on the back of the heel here, you actually have the New Balance that's stitched in gold against that nice leather heel tab. On the front of the tongue, you have this maroon tag here that has all the New Balance information with 574. However, on the back of the tongue tag here, it says BHM 2021. On the insole of the shoe, you have this really fly purple and black design here. It almost looks like sequins or designs on like a really formal dress here. I really like this design that they put on the insole. Really dope. And on the outsole of the shoe, you actually got this brownish kind of gum outsole here. So really nicely done with the purple and the black and the maroon on the shoe. I really like the colors that they used on these. And that's pretty much it for the New Balance 574 for Black History Month 2021. Now again, I really like this sneaker. This sneaker was actually designed by a group of internal New Balance associates, so that was fly as well, as opposed to the Denim tiers where they actually got an external person, which a lot of brands tend to do. New Balance actually reached within their own associate pool and actually put together some of their own employees to tell the story for Black History Month and to design this sneaker. So salute to New Balance for doing that. New Balance has had an incredible year for 2020. They're kicking off 2021 very impressive as well. I'm very excited to see what they got coming up next. Now, the next sneaker that we're going to take a look at was one that was very popular, but it seemed like a lot of people didn't really understand why the sneaker was so popular. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Boom. This is the Air Griffey Max 1 Freshwater for 2021. Just holding these in my hand just takes me back to Sega Genesis days when I played Ken Griffey Jr. If you're a Ken Griffey Jr. fan, you understand why these are such a big deal. But if you're new here and there's a good possibility that you might not be too hip on Ken Griffey Jr., let me run down a little bit about the kid. When you talk about the greatest baseball players of all time, Ken Griffey Jr. is gonna be on pretty much everybody's list. Ken Griffey Jr. started his love of baseball watching his father play professionally with the Cincinnati Reds and seeing his father win back-to-back World Series championships with the Reds. Now, Ken Griffey Jr. went on to play 22 years of professional league baseball himself, mainly being with the Seattle Mariners and with the Cincinnati Reds himself, and he also played for the White Sox for a little while before the end of his career. Ken Griffey Jr. was a 13-time All-Star. He was the recipient of 10 Golden Glove Awards, and he is currently in the Baseball Hall of Fame after receiving a first ballot vote of 99.3% of the votes. It was a unanimous decision to put him into the Hall of Fame. I mean, the man even has his own video games on Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64, not to mention his 630 home runs over his career, making him the 7th most home run hitter in the league history. But with all of those accolades and with all of that underneath his belt, Ken Griffey Jr. never won a World Series title, and that is just sad. Like, Ken Griffey Jr. might be one of the best players to ever play the game of baseball that never won a title. Like, how do you not get a World Series title anyway? Now, as I mentioned, because Ken Griffey Jr. was so big, naturally he got a deal with Nike. And Ken Griffey Jr. worked side by side with Tracy Teague to develop what would become the Air Griffey Max 1. Now, this freshwater colorway is one of the more rare colorways because you don't see it that often, but Nike brought it back for the 25th anniversary of the debut of this sneaker to give us this colorway that we actually haven't seen in the last 5 years. For those of us that grew up in the 90s watching Ken Griffey Jr., we remember seeing these shoes on his feet and everybody thinking, wow, what in the world are those on his feet and why are they so dope? Now, Nike was doing a really good job of creating sneakers that were cross-training sneakers that actually allow people to do a variety of different activities. Tinker Hatfield kind of had an idea where he wanted to have a shoe that combined all the different things that he'd like to do with the YMCA over in Oregon. So Tracy Teague and Ken Griffey Jr. actually took it a step further to develop what would become the Griffey Max 1. Ken Griffey Jr. himself said in an interview that he wanted a shoe that was loud, and he was really excited to get the shoe. So excited that before the sneaker was actually finally developed and they had a final version made that would go into mass production, Ken Griffey Jr. actually wore a sample that he was supposed to keep on the low, but somehow ended up in a 1995 cover of Sports Illustrated magazine. Needless to say, there's a ton of history and a ton of legend around this sneaker. It's iconic, and if you're an OG sneakerhead, if you're a Ken Griffey Jr. fan, or if you're a fan of baseball, or just an OG sneakerhead like I mentioned, this was a must-have in the collection, and that is why this sneaker has been so popular, and you've been seeing it sell out everywhere. everywhere. Let's take a little deeper look. All right, guys, starting with the upper of the sneaker here, it's a classic Griffey Max 1. You see it kind of has this wavy design here, really nice black nubuck material here with the iconic 24 on the strap here. Not only that, but he was actually very adamant about having a strap on the shoe. As they were going through the design process, Ken Griffey Jr. made it known that he wanted the strap on the shoe. That was one of the things that was a non-negotiable. Classic Mariners colored air bubbles in the sneaker as well on the midsole. Taking a top down look at the shoe, you see that huge swoosh that you get inside of that layer of really nice white leather. The leather here is actually really nice. Of course, you see that little pop of red at the bottom there. You see the pops of Seattle Mariners teal green at the top here on the tongue and on the back of the shoe. On the outsole of the shoe, you have that classic Griffey Max 1 outsole with that really dope baseball looking like it's on fire and the Seattle Mariners green flames behind it on the heel of the shoe as well. And on the insole, classic teal green insole with that red Nike Air on the heel. Like I mentioned, the freshwater Griffey Max 1 classic sneaker, especially for OG collectors, OG sneakerheads, and baseball fans alike. During the 1993 All-Star Game, you know who went up to Ken Griffey Jr. and asked him for his autograph? Michael Jordan. So that lets you know just how much of a legend Ken Griffey Jr. was. And last but not least, Ken Griffey Jr. was just named as the senior advisor to the commissioner of Major League Baseball. So congratulations to Ken Griffey Jr. for that achievement, but wouldn't expect anything less from the kid. From Seattle all the way to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that's the next stop in our next sneaker that we're looking at from a really dope up and coming fashion designer that has been making some major waves and has been making some major waves since about 2015 in the major sneaker world. Without further ado, let's jump into it. Boom. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is the GF01 in blue tweed by John Geiger. This is such a full circle moment for me, and I gotta really break this sneaker down real quick and give a huge thank you to John Geiger for gifting me this sneaker. He actually hit me and actually sent this sneaker over to me totally unexpected, and I didn't realize that he was even interested or even peeping me like that to send me a pair of these. So John, first of all, thank you so much for sending this pair over to me. Like I mentioned, if you guys aren't too hip on John Geiger, which I don't know where you've been because Geiger is pretty much everywhere. He is a prominent fashion designer who actually has a pretty interesting story for submitting his original designs for a concept he had for an Air Force One way back in the day, around 2014, 2015. Nike famously rejected the idea, so Geiger took it upon himself to put the sneaker design out to the masses. Now that sneaker is what was known as the misplaced checks, and the really interesting design was that he took an Air Force One model, usually a mid, and he put a series of swooshes on the lateral and medial side of the sneaker that were all a different luxury material. Now to date, you really hadn't seen Nike playing around with the swooshes on an Air Force One like that before, so what Geiger was doing back in the day was actually pretty revolutionary. Now, naturally, the sneaker completely sold out as soon as he dropped it and made a lot of noise in the sneaker community. People were paying a lot of money for the sneakers, myself included. John Geiger went on to create a white, black, and special numbered red version of the misplaced checks, and I had the red version and the white version. Unfortunately, wasn't able to get my hands on the black one. So I've been rocking with Geiger for quite some time. I love the idea of the misplaced checks, and oddly enough, later on down the line, Nike would start coming out with different Nike sneakers that were called misplaced checks or misplaced swoosh or things like that. So I just find it very interesting how they didn't get the idea back in the day, but now all of a sudden you see Nike playing around with the swooshes on the sneaker. It is what it is. Since then, Geiger has actually started his own fashion house instead of trying to collaborate with other brands. And within his fashion house, he's actually created his own original design. All right, guys, starting with the upper of the shoe here. Now on this one, you have this really interesting interwoven blue tweed design. Now you guys also see there's little hits of purples and pinks and greens in here, all woven throughout the sneaker, but it's tightly woven. So the shoe feels really solid. It doesn't feel like any of the tweed or any of the stitching is gonna fall off at any given time. Now laid on top of that blue tweed, again, you have the classic G for Geiger that actually spans on the tail of the G back to the heel tab of the shoe. On the midsole of the sneaker here, of course, seeming like a call to the Air Force One, you have that same thick white midsole here with the line going around the lateral to the medial side of the sneaker, but instead of it saying AF01, now it says GF01. One of my favorite parts about this shoe actually is how soft and breathable the mesh is on the sock liner and on the tongue of this shoe. Really nice. He actually caps off off the mesh tongue here that's very soft, by the way, with this really soft leather outlining the tongue as well. So very good job on that. Moving around to the heel of the shoe here, you have this really nice soft leather heel tab here in that same cream color that matches the leather on the top of the tongue and complements the khaki on the mesh very nicely. Geiger really has an eye for color here. This khaki mixed in with this really light tan colored leather mixing in with the blue. I even like the laces here, but just in case you don't like the black and white laces, he also gives you in his own bag, of course, a set of plain white laces as well. The packaging is super on point for Geiger as well. He has his own packaging, really nice emblem, nice materials. He even has his own paper that says JG inside of the box as well. On the insole of the sneaker here, you see the same JG in the green and black that you saw on the top of the box as well, all throughout the insole. And possibly my favorite design element of the sneaker here, the John Geiger original outsole here, featuring that same JG design as the insole all the way down the outsole from the top all the way down to the heel. This is a great shoe. This is a really good shoe, and not only is it a really well-made shoe, I love the story of the come up. John Geiger actually released a jacket a little while ago that I tried to get my hands on, but it sold out on me. And on the back of it, it says the underdog always wins. And I really like that jacket. I like what Geiger is doing. I like seeing his come up. And if you guys haven't supported Geiger yet, I would suggest that you go ahead and do that because he has some really good stuff at some really good prices. Once again, thank you very much for these, man. I really appreciate you sending these over to me. Really dope, man. Y'all need to check him out. I'll put his link down below so you can check out whatever's left that hasn't sold out. Now we're going from Pittsburgh to Chicago, to the heart of Chicago, with a really exclusive limited edition Nike Dunk High that just recently dropped from a really dope store in town that had a very interesting story to tell, and it came in 2 different colorways. Without further ado, let's jump in. Boom. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Nike Dunk High by Notre. This right here, I know we've been talking a lot about a lot of sneakers here, and I know people have been talking about a lot of dunks that have been coming out this year. But personally, I'm putting this on my short list for one of the best collaborations, period, and definitely one of the best dunks of 2021. I know it's still early, but I'm putting this on my short list. This has got to go top 10, if not top 5, for the storytelling, the materials, and the collaboration itself. Let's jump in. All right, starting with the upper of the sneaker here, you guys see it's a classic Nike Dunk High design, but what's really interesting is the story that it tells in the material. Now, the first thing you guys are going to notice here is this rough, almost worn in looking leather on the upper of the shoe here, and it goes from the collar down around the heel of the shoe, down the eyelets on the mud guards, and wrapping around the toe box as well. On the lateral side, you're also going to see that material on the swoosh. Now, the quarter panels of the shoe tell a very interesting story. On the lateral side, you're going to get this really nice leather. Taking a top down look at the shoe here, you also get this really nice blue leather on the toe box as well. But there's an interesting contrast on the medial side of this shoe that we'll take a look at in just a moment. Just remember that you saw this leather on the lateral side. Really nice blue leather on the inside and the sock liner of the sneaker. I really like that element. And on the tongue of the sneaker, you can start to see the different materials that were used in this shoe. Some of the shoe's elements have this really soft leather here, like you see on the collar on the lateral side, but then you also get to see this contrast of materials with this really rough, really rugged and durable denim material as well. And that's where the sneaker starts to change shape and to kind of change the narrative a little bit. This sneaker does a great job at telling the story between the contrast of luxury and hard-working Midwesterners that Chicago is known to breed. The owners of Notre, Jose Villanueva and Michael Jaworski, I probably got his name wrong, they wanted to pay homage to their fathers who were hard-working, blue-collar workers back in the day in Chicago where they grew up, and they wanted to pay homage to that story with the materials that they used in the sneaker, while also transitioning into the new kind of more upscale brand and boutique that Notre is today. If you guys aren't familiar with the store Notre in Chicago, it really is a staple in the community. As a matter of fact, the word Notre in French actually means hour. So like how Notre Dame actually means like Our Lady, it means hour, which represents community. And the medial side of this sneaker that I'm going to show you guys in a second really speaks to that community aspect of the shoe. But like I mentioned, the really sturdy, really rugged denim material here is really representative of those types of uniforms that the guys that worked in factories and production lines and did steel work and things like that used to wear back in the day. You actually can see this on the back of the sneaker as well, where you see this difference between the leather or the more luxury side on the lateral side of the shoe and the more rugged canvas type of side on the medial side of the sneaker. And that's accented with the same canvas heel pull on the back of the shoe. Now you're also going to get 2 extra sets of laces with these, a cream colored set of laces and a tan or kind of beige set of laces as well. Really nice. Now, flipping around to the medial side of the sneaker, this is where it starts to get really interesting for me. The first thing that I want to point out is the canvas quarter panel on the medial side of the sneaker that offsets the leather quarter panel on the lateral side of the shoe. So like I mentioned, they really wanted to show the contrast between the leather or the more luxury side on the lateral side of the sneaker and the canvas or the more rugged side of the medial side of the sneaker. One of my absolute favorite design details on this sneaker is the Notre tag that's on the left-hand sneaker here that really represents that same kind of stitched name tag that would be on those same types of factory and production uniforms like guys like their father used to wear back in the day. This just really drives that point home that they really come from humble beginnings, from hard-working beginnings. And again, the whole idea of this sneaker looking so worn in was that they felt like Chicago was a worn-in city, a really worn-in, very Midwestern city with good, hard-working, blue-collar people that paved the way and gave opportunities for guys like the owners of Notre to be able to have their own business one day. And I think they just did an incredible job of paying homage to that and staying in touch with the community and their roots. Speaking of their roots in the community, the last detail that I love on the outer of the sneaker here is the community swoosh. They actually were able to take the swoosh, and as you can see here, it actually looks like two hands shaking within the tail end of the swoosh. And I love that design detail. I love the handshake swoosh. This is really what sold the sneaker for me here. When I saw this handshake swoosh design here that Notre did for this sneaker, I said, I've got to have them. Now, Notre actually did a very special release with these sneakers here where they came out with the blue version that was available on the Notre website as well as the sneakers app, but they also came out with the Orwood brown version that was exclusively available on the Notre website as well. Fortunately, I was able to get my hands on both of them. I scored these off the Notre website and I scored these off the sneakers app. Now, the dope thing about these is that the design elements are pretty much the same. You have some hits of red here. The Notre name tag here is in red with a white background, but personally, I like this color a lot more. It kind of sucks that this was the more limited color here because in my personal opinion, it was actually the better color and the more favorite color, but you're gonna have to pay pretty much triple retail price, maybe a little bit more if you want to get your hands on these. But I'm gonna tell you guys, but the color and the way that this sneaker was executed, the community handshake swoosh here in this really nice, it almost feels like satin material that they stitched the swoosh with. These are worth the money. I'm really surprised that they're not going for more money. Last but not least, a great design detail as well is the insole on these. Now, a lot of people don't pay too much attention to the insoles, but on a really dope collaboration like this, the insoles were actually something that they paid attention to as well. So as you see, it's the same insole on the Orwood brown and on the blue version of the Dunks here, and it looks just like kind of this grayish, kind of to match that worn in leather that's on the upper of the sneaker as well. But upon a closer look, you can actually see that these are the real materials here. This is really the same pretty much material as on the upper of the sneaker here. It's textured. It's actually textured like real raw materials here on the insole, and you don't see that very often. Notre absolutely knocked these out of the park. I love these shoes. I love the story that they tell. I love the colorway of the Orwood brown, but the blue is really, really nice as well. It feels like those blue uniforms, like almost like a sneaker that you would wear with one of those blue uniforms at one of those blue collar jobs. So they did an incredible job with these. My only gripe about this sneaker, the only one, is the fact that they didn't get special edition packaging with these. I really wish that they got special edition boxes that really drove that point home. Maybe on the lid of the shoe box, they put the same kind of community handshake swoosh with Notre above it. I don't know why Nike didn't give them their own special packaging, but the sneaker, absolutely incredible. Last but not least, you guys know we got to bring it back to Jordan Brand. The box just tells you exactly what it is, so let's just talk about the box. As you guys can see, Clot has just collaborated with Jordan Brand for a new sneaker that pays homage to some really dope elements that have a lot to tie in with the Lunar New Year and the Chinese New Year that just passed on February 12th. Now, we've talked a little bit about Clot collaborations with Jordan Brand before and the idea of the Terracotta Army. Now, if you guys aren't familiar, the Terracotta Army, as I mentioned, were little figurines that were crafted and actually buried along with the first emperor of China that ended up being uncovered sometime in the 70s. Now, those little figurines were made out of clay, and the texture of that clay is actually represented on the outer packaging of the new Air Jordan 14 Low with Clot. So they really took that idea of terracotta and those terracotta army soldiers really to heart with this, even into the packaging. This is really nice. You guys see the gold Jumpman here with the Clot co-branding. You see the 23 with the Jordan with the Clot co-branding on the bottom. But as I mentioned, if the light picks up the box very well, you guys can see that this is actually a textured box here. It feels like that clay. Let's take a look at the shoe. Boom. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Air Jordan 14 Low by Clot. Edison Chen, you did your thing on this one, sir. This is an incredible looking sneaker here. I love the colors. I love the materials. I love it all. Let's dive in. All right, guys, starting with the upper of the sneaker here, and you have the classic Air Jordan 14 Low silhouette, but this time you have some really nice design elements and colors that all, in my opinion, work really well together. Now, you guys may be wondering why, first of all, there is no Jumpman inside of the Jordan emblem here on the lateral side of the shoe, and what these little things that look like shoestrings are woven throughout the upper on the lateral and medial side as well. That is made to represent armor from the Terracotta Army. You guys can probably see it a little bit better here. This actually is a card that comes inside of the box with the sneakers. On one side, it just has the Jumpman with the Clot code branding, but on this side, as you can see, it actually has a depiction of one of the soldiers from the Terracotta Army with a Clot branded basketball, looking like he's about to throw a layup in that armor. So as you guys can see, the upper on the shoe is made to look like the armor on the soldier as well. And of course, he's rocking his own pair of Clots, of course. The shoe actually feels a little bit more solid as well. And the sneakers app actually said that heavy duty build was intentional to really give that feeling of armor as well. So the shoe is going to be a little heavier, but to me, definitely quality. Now, moving down from there, you guys also see you have these clay colored teeth here and the clay colored embellishment here on the bottom of the midsole. This is really dope as well because it has this texture of clay. I'll give you guys a little bit more of a close-up. You guys can see that's not smooth, that's actually textured. It's a little bit rough and it's made to feel like that clay as well. Taking the top down, look at the shoe here. Really nice colors here. I love the color blocking on this shoe. Really love the darker brown on the toe box here with that cream colored Jumpman right here. I really like the way that they did this. Even the tongue of the shoe is a little bit different. On the upper half of the tongue of the shoe, they wanted it to look more like a scroll. And then that's offset, of course, by the Jordan and the 14 with the black plastic rod going through it here, where you have this stitched in with the same colors of the rest of the shoe here. So kind of this clay color that you saw on the midsole. Small design element that I really liked as well on the metal lace tips on these. They're kind of like this really dark brown clay looking metal lace tips as well. I really like that. As far as the insole of the shoe, clay colored insole here, which instead of the Jumpman, you have the Clot branding on the heel of this one. On the outsole of the sneaker, it keeps in with that same theme of the browns mixed in with that clay terracotta color. You have that clay color here on the 14 emblem, and then you have that more brown color going down the rest of the outsole. Beautiful colors that they use on this shoe. Really nice. I really like. People are going to start wearing 14 lows if they can be these kinds of colors. Moving around to the back of the shoe here, you have the black classic Air Jordan 14 heel tab here with the Jordan going down it. And that leads me to the final element of this sneaker, which is this. What in the world is this knotted up little design element here with this little coin underneath it? Let's talk a little bit about this because this is my favorite part of this shoe. First things first, let's talk about this knot here. Now, this is what's known as the mystic knot. Now, this is also known as the lucky knot or the eternal knot, and it's known as the knot that swallows its own tail, representing eternal wisdom and compassion. Asian culture is just so dope. In Buddhism, the eternal knot is actually one of the 8 auspicious symbols that's presented to Buddha once he reaches enlightenment. The mystic knot is also known to represent continuity, harmony, and a very long and prosperous life. Now, the coin underneath that is also meant to represent good luck, wealth, and prosperity. Speaking of good luck, wealth, and prosperity, that is why you guys may have noticed, if you guys have any friends that are part of Asian culture, for the Lunar New Year back in early February, they were gifted red envelopes. Now, the meaning of that red envelope is that many times these are filled with money. Sometimes they can be filled with the eternal knot or coins or things that represent good fortune, wealth, and prosperity going into a new year. It's an incredible custom in Asian culture and one that I love. And lots of cultures have their own little things that they do, right? A lot of times you hear about certain foods being eaten that bring in good wealth and prosperity for a new year. And in Asian culture, they have these coins, they have eternal knots, and they have red envelopes that also serve the exact same purpose. So kudos Kudos to Jordan Brand for adding this incredible design element along with Edison Chen and Clot to really drive home the point of how special this particular sneaker is, guys. This is what it's all about here. This is what I mean when I say that sneakers are art. They're not just shoes. And I really want you guys to make sure that as you're looking at these sneakers, flipping these sneakers, selling these sneakers, that you guys really come to appreciate the design elements and the execution that goes into these sneakers, because it's little elements like this that make the shoe so special. And that's pretty much it when it comes to all the sneakers that we've looked at today. Now it's time for you guys to sound off down in the comments. Let me know what you guys think about the Notre Dunks, the Griffey Max 1 Freshwater, the Denim Tears Converses, the New Balance Black History Month, or the Clot 14s. And let me know if you guys picked up any of these new sneakers that just recently dropped, if you passed on all of them, which ones you did like, which ones you didn't like, or which sneakers have you recently been picking up during all this craziness that we've been dealing with out here. I'd love to know. Sound off. Of course, right down in the comments, make sure that you click on that subscribe button so we can welcome you into the Sneaker Fetish family, to make sure you don't miss out on any more heat that comes through like these, because believe it or not, even with all these sneakers, I got a lot more heat on the way. As always, I want to thank you guys for joining me here today on Sneaker Fetish, taking a look at all of these sneakers, unboxing them all with me today. I go by the name of Kari. These are all of these sneakers that you saw today. And until next time, I'm out.